Benefactor underwriting for this broadcast has been provided by a grant from Republic Bank. The power of red is back. Major underwriting support for this broadcast has been provided by grants from New York Community Bank, M&T Bank, Perfect Building Maintenance, Customers Bank, Collins Building Services, Marks Paneth. Additional underwriting support has been provided by grants from AmTrust Title, Bank of America, Capital One Bank, Douglaston Development Levine Builders, Flushing Bank, Friedman LLP, Handro Properties LLC, Handler Real Estate Organization, Investors Bank, James D. Kuhn Real Estate Institute at Syracuse University, John Casamatides Red Apple Group, New Banks, Meridian Capital Group, Ocean First Bank, RPW Group, TD Bank, the One Stop Property Group, and these friends. Ooh, Crystal Apple. Tell me the world is going to get better in the hospitality industry. There's going to be money from banks. There's going to be new developments. There are going to be interesting times in hospitality. But I am not a guru, and I really can't predict the future. So today I brought together a combination of individuals who really understand the hospitality industry. I have a developer owner, I have the man with the money, and then I have the man who values these businesses from all over the country. So let's talk about it. So my guests today on the hospitality discussion include Brad Honigfeld, who is the founder, co-CEO, and chairman of the Briad Group. Our money man, Brennan Keating, administrative vice president, group manager, hospitality for my friends at M&T Bank. And last but not least, schlepping in from Chicago, Illinois, over there, Bryan Younge, who is the executive vice president, head of the valuations business for gaming, hospitality,
leisure.
And leisure, of course. There's leisure over there for Newmark. So you have the national perspective. Even though Brad is building in San Diego and also does national, I want your national perspective of what we see for 2022.
Can I borrow that?
Sure.
There's a lot of different opinions, and it really boils down to the market. Some markets are going to do very well, some are going to struggle. The way I like to look at it is which markets have the most upside. So looking back pre-pandemic, the markets that were doing really well, the gateway markets at least, Washington, D.C., San Francisco, those were markets that were in the top 10 in terms of performance. As we sit right now, they're in the bottom 10. So the expectation, of course, is these markets to return to where they used to be at some point. They have tremendous upside. When you're looking at the development that's going on in a lot of the gateway cities, you get a sense as to which markets people have faith in. San Francisco, D.C., a lot of faith. Troubles in Chicago, I think, for a number of years, but they'll come around. The markets that are the most dynamic, probably the mid-scale markets, mid-tier in terms of size, but yeah, it's a difficult question right now. Right when we think we're going one direction, something happens, we end up going another.
Building a hotel, it doesn't take place overnight. You were talking before about San Diego, that you started in 2008 or something like that.
I bought the land in 2006, and we have had a Marriott franchise since 2008 or 9, yeah.
Okay, so let's talk, as I'm saying, it takes a long time to develop a hotel. Where do you stand today in future developments? I hear that the limited service business is a market that people like. Okay, it's less expensive to operate. You can do it efficiently. Is that an area that you see as an opportunity? I mean, you've gone to some new brands within the Marriott thing, like the AC and so on.
Yeah.
So the question is, are we talking about the suite hotels? Are we talking about the leisure hotels? Are we talking about, like we spoke prior to the show, about the Gaylord type of shows. Where do you see the opportunities?
Well, for us, it's really in the limited service brands of both Marriott and Hilton. I think we've built, the most Marriott and Hilton product outside of Manhattan over the last 20 years. The bank, M&T, has financed a number of, probably half of my, ground-up hotels. We have not acquired hotels. Everything has been built. I've been a seller of hotels, sometimes at the wrong time in the last crisis of 2010. Hopefully, there'll be a clearer path forward. You got to keep these things for a longer period of time to harvest the upside. But I am bullish on the limited service lodging sector. We've just started to re-energize and really start to put properties under contract, and some things that we dropped. So there are residents in Ocean, New Jersey. We have closing on a piece in Princeton, New Jersey, hopefully to do an AC and an element combo. And we've done some rooftops on an AC and an element recently, which have really driven weekend business. So these are 100 to maximum 150 room properties.
And what's the average size of the room?
I would say 280 square feet. San Diego's probably 220 square feet. But limited, public space. San Diego is a little bit of an anomaly. It's got a rooftop, it's got a pool, it's got a bar on top. You can clearly see all the views of the city. It's got a small club called Love Story on the bottom level on Fifth Avenue, and the lobby bar is going to be really activated. So, but again, it actually, looks and feels like a limited service hotel.
M&T is basically in the east, okay, even with the People's merger taking place. You're following your customer.
Exactly.
Specifically over here on Briad, okay? Somebody who's been in business with you. Today, if somebody came to you who you've never done business with, would you even entertain the possibility of doing business with them?
Right now is a challenging time to bring in probably a new hospitality client. We have a portfolio of hotels that we finance that are still, in many cases, under stress. We are still looking out into 22 covenants, and do we expect them to still be met? Year-end covenants for 21. We've done a number of covenant modifications just for the last quarter, and when we're kind of looking at that and properties aren't kind of meeting what our projections were going in, it's kind of hard to go and start adding to that grouping right now.
I agree with you 100%. You shouldn't take the additional risk because the market is unsettled. Okay, each day we have a new variant, we have a new rule. It's difficult to get employees, all that. What about loans that are construction loans which come due? Are you doing permanent loans?
So if we have a construction loan that is maturing and
Yes.
will we refinance it for perm? Absolutely. Yeah, we're going to relook at it. We're going to re-underwrite it. Reserves may be required. If the leverage level doesn't make sense, there may be a pay down, there may be recourse, or it may make sense. Maybe it might be fine as is. So, but we'll absolutely look to extend those loans.
On a national scale, what about financing availability for new construction, existing property, and refinancing? Where do you see that?
I think conventional financing is very difficult to get right now for especially new entrants. Right now, we've seen a lot of cash that's been on the sidelines for a number of years finally being able to enter. So there's a little bit of competitiveness, I think, in finding the deals in the first place. But to have a conventional loan these days, it's difficult. You have to have a track record with a lot of the lenders. That's been a little bit difficult to get over the past couple months. That said, I think over the past, this is probably a great question for Brennan, but over the past couple of months, there's been a little bit of thawing. Markets have rebounded enough to a point where it's not just a leisure play, that the corporate and group are starting to show signs of recovery as well. It'll take a little bit of time, but I think as the fundamentals recover, I think the financing will in turn.
Sports betting has been great for New Jersey. People get on the car, they ride over the George Washington Bridge or the Lincoln Tunnel, they then take their phone out and they make a bet, okay? And I believe New York State's going to have a situation similar rather soon. Do you see the sports betting having an effect on the hospitality industry in certain states, and also in New Jersey specifically?
I think that those are relatively exclusive. Hospitality, travel, and destination, and gaming are a little bit different. But if you're talking about casino hotels,
I'm talking about both. I'm talking about gaming in general, where you can have sports gaming and casino hotels.
yeah, I think that it would help with the recovery process of the economy in general. I don't know that it would have major swings in the number of heads and beds for lodging facilities throughout the U.S. as a whole. Looking specifically at gaming in markets like Vegas and, specifically Vegas, I believe we're going to see a very quick return over the next 2 years or so, especially in the second half of next year. I think that's when a lot of the consensus of the recovery will be. But as for sports betting and its impact on hospitality, I don't think that it'll be too significant.
What about, conventions? I mean, have we seen an increase in conventions? What do you see happening?
Well, I'm monitoring San Diego very carefully because we have a $100 million investment going into the ground right now, which the bank is a big part of that. So I would say looks like about just a little bit less than half of the delegates from 2019. If you look at that as that top of the year, so maybe 350,000, 400,000 of delegates. Actually, just speaking with one of your colleagues, Jeff Mary, the other day, the good part of it is in cities like San Diego, Las Vegas, the warmer climate areas, Orlando, a lot of the people that book the conventions are not bound by certain cities anymore. Their contracts are up, so they can really go anywhere. So getting that Gaylord up in San Diego would be great because it will just add capacity, which has been the expansion has not occurred at the San Diego Convention Center. But you talk about a city to have conventions, you can't really beat San Diego and Las Vegas in terms of weather.
What's happening with regard to the discussion, specifically in the New York area and other places around the country also, with regard to making the hotel into a residential apartment? Have many of your clients spoken to you, or a few?
We've had a couple properties that were converted into homeless shelters during the pandemic. For the most part, those have converted back into hotels at this point. We have one property that is expected to be sold and then have its use be for a homeless shelter.
So you're talking a homeless shelter as opposed to residential rental?
Yeah, we haven't had any that have converted to residential rental.
Any thoughts on that?
Well, yeah, New York I think is a little bit of a different story. The way that it was hit by the pandemic had a jolt on the adaptive reuse, and homeless shelters, I think, in this market was along those lines. Other markets like Chicago, I think, there were hotels that had closed. Some, not many, had converted to residential use. But the expectation is that most of these hotels that had closed would reopen and eventually return to normal. The vast majority of the hotels that have closed in the U.S., something like 18,000 hotels at its peak in, I want to say, June or July of 2020, 80% of those have reopened. There's been a steady trend up until about 2 months ago where those reopenings have outpaced new closures. Up until recently, closures have started outpacing again, and a lot of those are just playing the waiting game again in the winter. Not a lot of adaptive reuse going on yet, but it will be a wait and see for those.
What about your thought about it?
We have 3 hotels in the Bridgewater Branchburg area, and up until just recently, I would tell you that, and even our town place is probably underperforming in that particular market. The Homewood has started to come back since international travel opened, because it's all pharmaceutical companies, and it was the best market outside of Jersey City. That's why we built the AC there. Consequently, the AC, probably 4 sellouts, 150 rooms each night this past month. I mean, we are seeing a different booking pace than we have previously, much shorter window. And, I'm out to the market to refinance a lot of debt here shortly. There's a lot more capital that's in the market that I think that people, aside from banks, there's a lot of, funds that are out there, debt funds, that really are looking to put money to work, and they get insurance money and so forth. So I think the markets are deep for larger portfolios than people think. The markets are very deep for 3,000-4,000 room, or call it in the $300 to $500 million range, if not more. So there's active deals that are getting done at that higher level. I think there's going to be more consolidation as well.
So let's talk about the Apple. Let's talk about New York City. Listening to you and looking at your portfolio and knowing you over the years, I've never seen in Manhattan or the 5 boroughs, okay, Central Islip, certain other places. Why not the Apple? And do you think there's an opportunity? One man's misfortune may be another man's opportunity that you can take over and buy some hotels over there.
I'll be 63 years old. I've been doing this since I'm 13 in restaurants at Michael, as you know, in 1996, and I worked for Marriott for 41, or been with Marriott for 41 years as an employee, and then left with my profit sharing of about $50,000 in there. There comes a point where, and I've been a huge consumer of debt. As Brennan knows, I've worked through a lot of different things. So, the idea is I have a son, I have a daughter, both in the business. I want them.
Are you saying
to
that
shine.
life is too short to be operating a hotel in New York City?
It is right now for me. I have one property in Jamaica. It's fully ready to go. To be honest with you, it's
Yeah, I was reading, but that was supposed to be a residential rental.
Exactly, and it's may go under contract, and we got all the approvals. It was a parcel that I bought 20 years ago, and next to a Wendy's, and it could be 100 units of apartments, and it's been very difficult to find the right person that wants to go and build it. And residential is not my really. I can build anything, but operating something, I would need a partner, because it's not what I do every day. Hotels are in my blood. I can do that there. And as we talked a little bit earlier in the show, the profitability in these limited service hotels have skyrocketed. That we're up, significantly from where we were.
Even with lower rates.
It's not, financing rates, it's employees, it's there. I think
That's what I'm saying.
And the consumer has been changed of what their expectations are.
I
I'm
know,
not
I-
going to say they're not going to change back.
Look, I was in Denver and I needed a hotel room for my granddaughter's bas mitzvah. So we went to Hyatt Place, okay, a large Hyatt Place. And basically they said, we don't clean the room unless you want it.
Yes.
Until it's every 4 days. You want any towels or pillows, come downstairs and pick it up. So the amount of labor was much shorter.
Yep.
Okay? Now, they did have, open breakfast if you wanted, which surprised me that they kept the breakfast concept over there. But I think people are adapting to the style over there. You see people around the country. Has anyone said, New York City's hospitality had 60 million visitors. It's been a great market over there. I really want to seize the opportunity and come to New York?
Absolutely. I mean, getting back to your question about services and the adaptation of consumer expectation has been forgiving, if you will, for the past year and a half. That's not going to continue. I think that what's going to differentiate is service. Service is an enormous component of goodwill within the hospitality industry. There's a lot of brands and soft brands out there that are really splintering markets, especially now. So what's going to make a difference is who's going to be the better manager, the better operator. So you need to be careful when cutting costs, especially if you're in a brand with certain expectations. Sure, we'll go down to the lobby once or twice to grab some pillows and blankets, but not for long.
Now, what about the question, especially in New York City, you have a new Ritz-Carlton, you have a, what's his name, Richard Branson's hotel. You have all these 5, maybe 4.5, 5-star. Do you see a need for any new hotels?
Well, if you look at Marriott's publications, I think there's 190 luxury hotels around the world that are going up. So, if you think about these larger brands like Marriott and Hilton, they're really thinking about the world, not just the U.S. And
No, I know they're thinking about the world, but I'm talking, I want to be centric here. I want to see what's happening in New York City.
in New York City, I mean, it's an anomaly. So you have to be betting on the future, right? I mean, if you were even thinking about, if you had a piece of land, depending upon what your land basis is, I wouldn't necessarily start construction today. I can't even get roofing materials for San Diego. I mean, insulation. It's becoming very, very difficult on certain things. We have our own construction business. So I have a number of my subcontractors from New Jersey out in San Diego to finish this project because of, we would never be able to bring it in on time, on our cost, or close to it if we didn't control every aspect of it. So I think it depends upon, again, your land basis, who the party is that's building it. If you're buying a piece of property today at the height of the market, and land is very expensive. I mean, it's not gone down in value; it's only gone up. And the other problem in New York is it's a unionization, city, and it's very, very difficult to make the economics work in this environment.
Thank you.
If I was looking at doing a new construction in New York right now, it's not something we would probably be doing. I mean, we have a lot of construction that we had financed pre-pandemic, and some of that is just kind of coming online now because of delays for materials, to what Brad was talking about. We have a 500-key Hyatt Place that just got its C of O earlier this month, so that's going to be coming online. So there's supply coming online right now when we're in an environment with occupancy that's been
I have a question. Any one of you can answer. What's happening with the timeshare business?
I'm not an expert. I'm not an expert, to be honest with you, in timeshare, but I think there's a market for it. I mean, for sure.
Brian?
There has been an escalation of deals, believe it or not. Not necessarily new construction. We're talking about adaptive reuse. That's been the conversation many times. We've seen the residential market thrive. That is the one component of hospitality that I think has a correlation to residential and disposable income. With all the leisure travel that we saw that were really keeping the mid-tier properties afloat, a lot of those were fueled by leisure travelers. And those are also the highest propensity travelers to invest in timeshare. So there's a lot going on. It hasn't really gotten the traction it needs yet to make an assessment on it, but it's coming.
There are a couple of facilities over here in New York which are timeshare, but over there. Let's talk about Airbnb. Who wants to bring it up?
I mean, I think there's definitely a place for that. There's no question about it. I am probably not as comfortable going to an Airbnb that maybe someone who's younger is. I mean, we're talking about generations here. That once you start, today technology is just soared. I mean, you look at the different, booking methods for hotels, Booking.com, Hotels.com, all these different, channels. It is very, very difficult for us to manage our revenue management.
But hasn't people like even Marriott gone into the Airbnb approach?
And home sharing to a degree, but to be honest with you, I think to think that Airbnb's market cap is I think even more than Marriott and Hilton, are pretty close to that. It's unbelievable because they don't have any hard assets,
Right.
But I see Marriott.
But they're like a management company. They don't have assets, and they just charge a
Yeah,
fee.
and
I mean, there are rather similarities over there.
And I see both of Marriott and Hilton being, the two biggest players that are out there worldwide, adapting to their consumers in different ways that will be needed in the future, TBD.
So we have Airbnb and we have Sounder. What's the difference?
Well, really the way it's distributed and the experience is quite a bit different. Saunders, we've seen a lot of office type facilities repurposed for lodging use. that experience is quite a bit different than if you're going into a full service property.
Right.
It really does all come back. I mean, we were talking about Airbnb earlier. It comes back to service. Those who stay in hotels and invest in nights usually want the experience, or at least the accoutrements, if you will. But Airbnb doesn't offer any of that. So I think that was, rather than being competitive, there's some overlap. That is a market in and of itself that's doing quite well.
But I think it's like Brad was saying, it's generational. It's dependent
Right.
on a specific age. Okay, you'll find the younger, the millennial, going to Airbnb as opposed to somebody like Brad or myself thinking about that. With the exception, if you want to have a large family and you can find a large, I mean, I was with somebody the other day who's building a house in an opportunity zone in North Carolina. I said, and he's saying, should I make it a three bedroom or a 4-bedroom? Because he says, I'm going to Airbnb it. I said, first of all, I'm not the specialist in that, but when people start thinking about going to a new area because Apple's opening up a warehouse or something like that, I think it's not the time to venture out and take some risk. But I think looking at my apples over there, especially the big one, it's going to take a little time to get better next year, okay? But the country is resilient, the New York market's resilient, and when you have people who understand the hospitality market, I think things are going to do well. I'd like to thank Brad, Brennan, and Bryan for being here today. See you next week.